All right, welcome to our latest edition of 10 Minutes With. This is actually the second one recording this week, but we space them out, so who knows when this will be live. That's the fun thing. We can record as many of these as we want and space them out. It's awesome. So our guest today is the host of the Nick Rodriguez podcast. Please welcome Nick Rodriguez.
Hey guys, thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
So we're going to go right into it. Why'd you start a podcast?
It's a great question. That's a great question. So I was working in podcasting right after I got out of school, went to the College of Charleston, and the first job I got was with the Pro Business Channel. And, did a lot of great stuff with audio engineering and just learning a lot about podcasting. And fast forward probably 2 years later, we're great friends and we're working on a lot of different, things, like the Podcasters Directory and stuff like that. So he was like, you know what, you should create your own podcast. I think it's time. I think it'd be great. And I was like, yeah, okay. And the hardest part for me was deciding what I was actually going to talk about. As you guys are obviously also big sports fans. So I know what I wanted to be about sports, but then once I focused in and found what I wanted to be about, it was a lot easier. And then we just hit the ground running.
What should you want to expect listening to your show?
Yeah. So our podcast is typically one-on-one interviews with people who are elites in the sports industry. And what we like to do is showcase not just athletes, but also media members and referees and anybody who really is elite in the sports industry, other podcasters as well, because what we're trying to do is show young podcasters who are typically in high school or in college who, want someone to look up to, a positive role model, or even just how did they get to that point? And I feel like there's a lot of shows or YouTube videos about how to be a great athlete, which is phenomenal, a lot of videos on that. But I also wanted to showcase other people who are dominating the sports industry as well.
So we're not elite. We know
you
that.
You are. Oh, man. Called out immediately. Wow.
I was thinking it, but I knew Kate was going to say it.
Hey, it's okay. Call me out now. Call me out.
We
won't be talking anytime soon.
No, I'll definitely have to have you guys on the show. No matter what, no doubt.
It's funny you mentioned referees. That's something that I think people are starting to figure out. I'm starting to see a little trickle up of people contacting referees and former referees and letting them hear their say. Because we actually, one of our goal guests is we've been trying for the last probably year plus to get Ed Hockley, the former NFL referee. God.
He would be awesome.
Yeah, he is a lawyer by day. I think he's like half retired now.
Okay.
Retired from the NFL, but he's actually based here in Phoenix. So I've been trying to score it as, hey, let's do this in person. We'll come into your office. And,
oh man,
and
that would be awesome.
And just crickets. I'm like, I'm gonna get it someday.
You're gonna get it. He's jacked too. I mean, you're gonna get him.
And based on his penalty explanations, we got to book like 3 hours for the show.
Oh, no doubt. Oh yeah, 10 minutes with is gonna change to 3 hours with. Yeah, no doubt with Ed, no doubt.
So let's move on. Piece of advice that you like to share that you've learned since you've started podcasting.
That's another great question. You guys have all the hard hitting questions today. I think going back to Rich is the guy that I'm working with the Podcast Directory. Some really great advice he gave to me was when you start a podcast, mine's every other week. It's not a weekly show, but when you start a podcast, have a few in your bank, so to speak, before you officially start releasing episodes, especially if you're a weekly podcast, because you could run out, at the beginning very quickly, right? So he was like, you should record 5 or 6 episodes to get started, and then, then you can start to go. And I was like, man, I don't want to do that, because I want to just, once you have the idea of a podcast and you record your first one, you just want to, release it, right? Have the world hear, because that's what you've been, working towards. But I think it was just such great advice because it prepares you, right? Because even if you aren't a weekly podcast, it prepares you to have so much just in case something happens. And that's really worked out for me really well.
That's something we actually figured out recently where
yes.
we would record, we'd release it the next day. And then it's like, oh crap, we can't record this week. Oh, we can't record this week. Oh, we can't record this week. Oh, and it's 3 months later.
Right.
Yeah, now it's like we're bulk stacking this. It's like we're all set now through like mid-July, I think, as far as bookings go. So it's like if we miss a week here and there, whatever.
Right. Yeah, no, it's like a good safety net. And especially when you're getting started and you're getting excited, you want to be consistent. You know, you don't want to have one show and then for 2 weeks you don't have anything. It's hard to, gain followers when you begin. So
for sure.
That was great advice for sure.
So if you could have anyone in the world as a guest on your podcast, who would it be?
Ooh, man, anyone.
Okay, with the surprise question, that was not on the script.
I like that though. I like that. A little surprise. I'm gonna go probably chalk, but I'm gonna go LeBron. I mean, I think having his level is superior, and the great thing about LeBron, you could talk about so many different things.
That would be another 3-hour show for sure.
Another 3-hour show, right? I mean, you could talk about the NBA, of course. He's a historian, so all of that, and then what's going on today. It'd be very interesting, and he's a very bright human being, so he would be able to, articulate himself very well. So I'm gonna go with LeBron.
That's a good answer. All right, so let's plug your show. Where can we subscribe to it?
Yeah, so it's on most, if not all, podcasting platforms. We're on Overcast, Stitcher, Apple, Spotify. You can find us on Twitter at InRodPod, and then Instagram, we're at Nick Rodriguez Podcast. And we recently started a YouTube channel, and that's called the Nick Rodriguez Podcast as well.
Awesome. And remember, I say this every time to a podcast, if you want to get on Pandora, it takes 6 weeks to approve you.
Wow, 6 weeks.
6 weeks.
Wow.
To the point
That's
when I filled out ours, I completely forgot about it until it showed up that we got approved. But just another side note for everybody watching, Pandora actually they're now owned by SiriusXM. They actually do these podcasting office hours for all members of Pandora Podcasts.
Oh, cool.
It's free to join, and they have like these kind of webinars where they talk about podcasting and different tips and tricks. So
yeah,
I haven't personally been to one yet, but from what I can tell, it seems like the 6 weeks is worth the wait. So you better jump on that now. If
that's got to be the next move. I gotta jump on to Pandora.
I thought iHeartRadio's was ridiculous. That was 2 weeks, but then Pandora's like, oh, we'll take up to 6 weeks.
Yeah, we got this.
Right.
We'll up it. Yeah, I remember Apple was like Spotify. I think was pretty easy,
mm-hmm.
And then Apple took a little because I think there's something in terms or whatever where it said it's going to be between like a week or I don't know. I remember it just being a long frame of time where you could be approved by Apple.
It's been a while since I've looked at Apple, but they've started to crack down a little bit, and they want you to have a show published and ready to go for day one. And,
okay.
But it's like, if you're trying to hype and build the promo for episode 1, it's like you want to be out there.
Right, especially on Apple, which is one of the big ones. I mean,
you don't want to do this soft release and be like, hey, my show came out 2 weeks ago. It's like you want to hype it up and have that big premiere day.
Right.
And then people are like, oh, I got an idea. I'm going to record a 2-minute trailer for my show, hyping the first episode. And they're like, nope, got to be more than like 10 minutes.
Wow. I didn't know that. I had already had episodes with Spotify, so that was, I guess, a little bit different, but I didn't realize.
Still the case or not, but it was, and I know there was a lot of backlash. And then there was also the whole shenanigans with putting episode numbers in your titles can get you kicked off of Apple Podcasts, and then they're like, oh no, just kidding, we're not going to actually do it.
That's crazy.
It's a constant change that you have to be on your toes for,
right?
Because you never know when they may threaten to boot you off or mistakenly boot you off, and then you get into the defensive. It's very challenging.
I feel you're a little passionate about this, DJ.
Yeah.
We've not publicly said this, but we work with YouTube for videos, and we actually just got audited by YouTube a couple of weeks ago. And this process went on via email for like a week and a half. And I'm just like, if they shut us down off of YouTube, that just took a third of our essentially our business away from us.
Yeah,
like,
man.
Please. And finally one day they're like, okay, we're all done. Thanks.
Oh, Well, it sounds like it worked out at least.
Yeah,
I mean, that's good.
and yeah, they basically are auditing for data and making sure you're not misusing the platform. And then they're like, oh, that's an old YouTube logo on your site. You better update that, and just violations.
Hey, DJ, we were really close to 10 minutes for once.
Yeah, I know. I did that on purpose because I wasn't sure. The one you were not at last week, we hit 10 minutes. So, haha.
Hey, it's okay.
Anyway, so we'll go ahead and wrap it up. Nick, thanks for being on the show. Again, one last time, social media.
Yeah, social media, Twitter @NrodPod, YouTube, the Nick Rodriguez Podcast, and Instagram is Nick Rodriguez Podcast.
Awesome. Nick, thanks again for being on the show. And be sure to follow us at Stadium Scene on Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, Stadium_Scene on Instagram. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. And did I say Instagram already? I don't know.
No, but you've got TikTok.
Whatever. We don't have any TikTok videos. Stadium_Scene on Instagram. And we will see you next time.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.